In today's video, we're going to be talking about the next president of the United States, Miss Hilary Duff, and how she was heavily discriminated against by Metacritic in the early to mid-2000s as far as I'm concerned. Now, Hilary Duff was my jam back in the day. I was obsessed with her and legitimately thought that someday I would marry her. Let's save that topic for another video that will never see the light of day. But one of the most frustrating things to experience as someone who has been following her career since 2005 is that this woman gets no respect from critics. Why? I would also like to know, because who in the F has the audacity to think Hilary Duff could ever do a bad movie? Okay, I'm straight up glazing at this point because 183% Hilary Duff has done some horrendous movies, like The Haunting of Sharon Tate and whatever How I Met Your Father was. Okay, that was a TV show, but you get my point. But that was not at all the case in the early to mid-2000s. So taking Metacritic into consideration, and I'm choosing Metacritic because these mother effers really do be out here thinking they're so much better than Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, let's take a look at the scores that some of these Philistines masquerading as film critics gave to movies that Hilary Duff was in, and how they were completely unjustified and obviously lack any understanding of iconic behavior and art. But before we get started, what is Metacritic? It's a website that aggregates critic reviews of various media, including film, and assigns a score to a movie based on weighted values that their system comes up with. Like, TBH, I actually have no idea what their inner workings are that determine how much a review weighs, but it sure does ruin the critical acclaim meter of a lot of movies, I'm gonna tell you that much right now. Again, kind of like Rotten Tomatoes, but way more reliable because everything on Rotten Tomatoes these days is at 100%. Ridiculous. Number 1, Cheaper by the Dozen. A movie about a family consisting of a mom and dad and their 12 children that single-handedly keeps Costco in business. It's honestly one of the most entertaining family movies I have ever seen. Hilary Duff happens to play one of the children, and while she doesn't have too much screen time, it doesn't change the fact that this movie is unfairly reviewed. You have a good plot about how parents are trying to balance their careers while still being there for their 12 kids. Like, what the fudge? Can we sidebar for a second? Like, what were these parents thinking? Do they not know what contraception is? Like, I'm pretty sure they could get a really good deal at Costco. Anyway, the kids are adjusting to living in a whole new neighborhood where they're being bullied at school. Their older sister is trying to get away from their insanity to the point she's trying to shack up with Ashton Kutcher. Like, that's how you know things are really bad at home. Like, it's basically Shameless if it were rated PG. It's well-paced, it's funny, the acting is fantastic by adults and kids of all ages. You learn a moral lesson or two, it's rewatchable, it isn't a waste of time, and it was definitely playing in your house back in the day, so why are you pretending like you've never heard of this movie before? And yet, it has a 46 on Metacritic, which means mixed to average reviews. And these are what the reviews look like. The Globe and Mail, 25 out of 100. The same studio has aimed a remake at the same family market. Translation, the once modest piece has been redesigned as a vehicle, a lumbering SUV, for Steve Martin, stripped of any vestigial charm, and then thrown into neutral, where its manic engine does nothing but roar loudly and pointlessly for the duration. Rick, be so for real. Like, did we watch the same movie? Why do you hate SUVs? And what does your hate of SUVs have to do with the movie not being good? Ignored? And then you have Megan chiming in with a 38 out of 100 from the New York Post. Can be summed up by the fact that Ashton Kutcher making a glorified cameo as a narcissistic model/actor is the best thing in it. Megan, I know you're not trying to flirt with Ashton Kutcher through a critic review he's never going to read, because let's be so for real right now, he was the worst part of this movie. Next. A 50 out of 100 from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Much as I adore Martin and Hunt, whose matching tongue-in-cheek delivery and finite patience makes them seem more like siblings than spouses, their movie is indistinguishable from an after-school special. Carrie, are you good? Steve Martin and Bonnie Hunt absolutely did not give sibling vibes, and serve some of the most romantic relationship vibes without making it overly sexual. Like, it's a children's movie for crying out loud. I don't know why you were expecting a Sex and the City rerun on HBO. And so what if it's indistinguishable from an after-school special? God forbid people learn values? Like, I'm so confused. Anyway, this movie rocked, and at minimum deserved 65 out of 100. Critics are out of touch with reality. Next! Number 2, Agent Cody Banks. Can I just say that I wanted to be Frankie Muniz back in the day because he ended up with Hilary Duff in this movie? Yes, I know nobody asked, but I'm not into journaling, so I'm going to be spilling my secrets on my YouTube channel because it's a hell of a lot cheaper than therapy. Agent Cody Banks is about a teenage secret agent who works for the CIA and is bringing down this bad guy who wants to use nanotechnology for evil. Caught in the crossfire is a scientist dude who doesn't have a clue, and his daughter, Hilary Duff, who is an assignment for Cody, but he ends up falling in love with her because, hello, she is literally Hilary Duff. There's action, there's comedy, there's whatever the hell this scene was. Holy crap, I'm cringing just thinking about it. There's memorable moments that I've based my entire personality off of. Like, basically this movie has everything. Oh, except a higher Metascore rating on Metacritic. Like, who is giving it low enough scores for it to be getting a 41? Like, is everyone okay? Let's find out. 50 out of 100, TV Guide magazine. The young stars have considerable natural chemistry and do their best to make the rehashed material approachable and entertaining while maintaining their kid-friendly images. Imagine stating the obvious considering it's a kids' movie with a limited budget that had no intention of breaking the mold, but to make existing tropes more entertaining and to give Hilary Duff a well-deserved paycheck, and still giving the movie a 50 out of 100? It's like you were so close to the point and just missed it by a mile. It's looking to me like Angel Khan was demonically possessed when writing this review. Next, 30 out of 100 by Washington Post. This movie is so wearying in its mediocrity, the inappropriate Ronica almost registers as dramatic relief. By Desan Thompson. Okay, if it was truly mediocre, you would have given it a 50, Desan. Even you don't believe your lies. And Ronica was a comedic queen. Do not insult her wit and sass for dramatic relief. Next, Austin Chronicle, a 0 out of 100, just like their relevance in 2024. Cody Banks would probably be appropriate for the 13 and older crowd, but it is far too dopey for teenage sophisticates. Explain to me what, and I'm assuming here, an adult film critic would know about sophisticated teenagers. Like, you don't make $58 million on a $28 million budget not knowing who your target audience is. But let's let Merritt, a grown man or woman, I honestly have no idea, tell us about what teenagers are into. This movie deserved a 63 out of 100. Next. Numero 3, The Perfect Man. This movie is why my standards in finding a partner are so high, and also why I'm cripplingly single and I'm definitely dying alone. The Perfect Man just set the bar way too friggin' high. You have Hilary Duff's Holly, who is being terrorized by her mom, who ditched Melrose Place for the suburbs, and then chooses to move every time a guy breaks up with her. When the movie starts, a breakup leads to them moving to New York, which honestly is such a vibe. I wish my mom would break up with a man just so that we could go live it up in the city where they shot Gossip Girl. Or I guess for the sake of this movie, Sex and the City. Wow, this is the second time I've referenced Sex and the City in this video. I wonder why. Anyway, so Holly is like hella traumatized because her mom has set a bad example when it comes to like relationships or whatever, and where she's a bit too open, Holly is completely closed off. So to avoid another breakup occurring, since Holly has had no friends, no one school because she keeps moving around all the time, and no stability in her life, she decides to create the idea of a perfect man by talking to Mr. Big, who understands women inside and out. She then gets her mom to fall in love with this idea of a man because you can't break up with the idea of a man that doesn't exist, i.e. Holly gets to stick around in New York and actually have a normal childhood before she's bitter and jaded, all at the expense of tricking her mom into thinking that a guy who lives in China is in love with her. The movie is actually way more complex than what people give it credit for, and if Universal would stop copyright blocking all my freaking videos, I'd probably do a whole deep dive into this movie. I guess we'll have to wait until I figure out what the hell their problem is, because I'm literally providing commentary like y'all need to leave me alone. Passive aggression aside, imagine Gilmore Girls but way darker and yet wrapped up in just as bubbly a facade. It explores mother-daughter relationships, breaking generational trauma, learning to work on ourselves before we fall in love with others, and accepting that as humans, we need humans in our lives whose responsibility it is to be there for us, or we won't be able to be there for the humans we like when we're ready. This movie is a masterpiece, so explain to me why the F it only has a 27 on Metacritic. Let's review, shall we? 30 out of 100, The Dallas Observer. It's a lame Heather Locklear romantic comedy and a lame Hilary Duff romantic comedy all in one. The fact that Luke here thought he did something thinking this movie was a romantic comedy lets me know that he missed the point of the film and clearly doesn't understand nuance when it comes to complex mother-daughter relationships. He probably also thought Gilmore Girls was a romantic comedy. Imagine missing the mark this badly. Ignored. 25 out of 100, The San Francisco Chronicle. There's just a matter of facing it that The Perfect Man is just something slapped together by people who don't care for an audience they figure will care even less. Hi, I'm audience, I care quite a bit, so just like your review, Mick, your hypothesis is incorrect. The audacity to give something a 25 out of 100 and saying people who don't care when there's so many layers to this movie is definitely a choice. 25 out of 100 again, this time from USA Today. So imperfect that it may qualify as one of the summer's worst movies. By staff not credited. A, this review makes no sense. B, I would also hide my name and or champion not being credited for a review if it were this bad. Next. 0 out of 100. My, the audacity we're dealing with this week. Entertainment Weekly. What sin did Heather Locklear commit to deserve her role in The Perfect Man? Oh, I don't know. What sin did you commit that the universe left you without taste, Owen? Bye. TBH, this movie totally deserves, at minimum, a 68 out of 100. Number 4, A Cinderella Story. There is nothing more infuriating than critics not understanding the cultural impact that this movie had on millennials and Gen Zers. But before we get into the insanity of Metacritic, let's talk about this movie. A Cinderella Story is arguably the best, if not the most rewatchable movie on this list. It is a masterpiece, and in one word, iconic. The plot, the clothes, the soundtrack, the actors, everything. Everything about this movie is perfect. We have a modern day retelling of Cinderella if she were a high school student with a flip phone. A friggin' flip phone! Oh, how I wish I had a flip phone in the mid-2000s. Incredible lighting, impeccable pacing, our evil queen Jennifer Coolidge, our fairy godmother Regina King, our prime minister Hilary Duff, Stacey Hinkhouse from Freaky Friday, Chad Michael Murray from One Tree Hill. Like, this movie had everyone who had a multi-year contract with Warner Brothers in one movie. So powerful. So how in the hell does a movie like this get a 25? I think I need to start throwing hands at this point because what the F, guys? 38 out of 100, Baltimore Sun. The story is without an original thought, the characters little more than caricatures, unappealing ones at that, and the filmmaking so uninspired that it's hard to imagine anyone embracing it with anything more than a shrug and a wonder why they didn't. I don't even care to read the rest of it because it's going to be just as pointless as what we've read so far. Without an original thought, we definitely did not watch the same movie, buddy. Using a cell phone to move the plot along when the OG Cinderella lost a slipper, like, they updated the movie perfectly because losing a cell phone is the most millennial thing for any millennial to ever millennially do. Like, everybody was losing their cell phones back in the day before they cost an arm and a leg and had a Find Your iPhone feature. It made complete sense that losing a cell phone would help you find the love of your life. And little more than caricatures, clearly Hilary Duff's assiduous and kind character had no effect on your cold, cold heart. Rhonda being ready to throw hands for the people she loves was lost on you since the fairy godmother did not have the balls in the original fairy tale. And it's obvious that Jennifer Coolidge's iconic presence was wasted on you as well, Chris. Please re-review your review, because this is just embarrassing at this point. Next, a 30 out of 100, Chicago Reader. Having diffused the fairy tale, first-time screenwriter Lee Dunlap pads this out to 96 minutes with stale high school politics and the usual claptrap about believing in yourself. Oh, yeah, J.R. Jones, how terrible that Lee Dunlap is using a fairy tale that was all about a helpless servant who needed help from a magical being, a prince, and anthropomorphic animals to escape her circumstances and turning it instead into a story about a servant girl who stands up for herself and helps set boundaries with the toxic mother effers who are taking advantage of her and trying to ruin her life. And how dare Lee Dunlap try to teach an entire generation of millennials to stand up for themselves when the going gets tough? Like, what was even the point of your review, aside from making it look like you only surround yourself with yes men and doormats? Bye, girl. A 25 out of 100, Miami Herald. The sort of entertainment that makes you happy to be grown up and able to avoid the current onslaught of trite, lazy, unimaginative films aimed at teenagers. Connie, if you ever in your life wondered why you don't get invited to parties, it's because this review is your entire personality. You just don't know how to have a good time. This hate critics have towards any media piece for teenagers is actually insane. Like, please get evaluated. Y'all boomers and Gen Xers need to cut the crap and put some respect on stuff that younger people like. And BTW, a lot of those younger people are still enjoying this stuff as adults. And Gen Alpha is also hopping on the bandwagon. Imagine being so loud and so wrong, Connie. Well, I guess you don't have to imagine. We're looking at the proof right now. A 10 out of 100, Washington Post. It is horrible. Time curls up and dies while this Hilary Duff vehicle wheels its weary, conventional way along. By Desan Thompson. Desan, why is that name familiar? Oh yeah, because just earlier in this video, this mother effer gave a bad review to Agent Cody Banks, another Hilary Duff movie. Oh, and looky here, this man loves using different variations of the word weary to describe Hilary Duff movies. Firstly, you clearly love Hilary Duff movies since you keep going to watch them and reviewing them. You went and watched Agent Cody Banks in 2003 and gave it a bad review, yet couldn't stay away from giving another bad review to a movie she was in 2004. And guess what? Your vocabulary didn't grow at all during that 1 year because weary this and wearying that. The only thing weary at this point is your pathetic attempts at ranking Hilary Duff movies lower than they need to be. Get a grip, my guy. You clearly were a Hilary Duff fanboy back in the day, but you chose to hide behind mean reviews instead of embracing her iconicness. Pitiful. Ignored. This movie obviously deserved, at minimum, a 70 out of 100. I don't care. Argue with the wall or fight it out in the comments. And finally, we have what I consider the second best Hilary Duff movie ever, and that is the Lizzie McGuire Movie. If you had consciousness in the mid-2000s, there's no way you haven't seen this movie. It was everywhere, and rightfully so. You have Lizzie McGuire, who is representative of every awkward teenager on the planet, who goes to Rome before high school starts and realizes that she has an Italian doppelganger whose identity she appropriates to help out said doppelganger's creepy partner. Talk about original. Talk about incredible. Talk about being a teenage pop star for Disney before Hannah Montana was Hannah Montana. So with all these incredible aspects to this movie, who is out here giving it a 56 on Metacritic? Actually, now I'm just being dramatic because, let's be real, 56 is actually not a terrible score for this movie. However, it's still 10 points too low. 50 out of 100, Chicago Sun-Times. Hilary Duff is beautiful and skilled, and I hope she finds something worthwhile to do with her talent before she truly does become the next Britney Spears and has to start worrying about the next Hilary Duff. Okay, so at the very least, Roger and I agree on Hilary Duff being beautiful and skilled. Where we disagree is that she has already found something worthwhile to do with her talent, and why are we dragging Britney Spears into this? Ma'am can literally buy both our lives, so how are you gonna shade her? Like, what does she have to do with Hilary's success? Anyway, Roger, your review started out great, but it really should have stopped after the first 6 words. Next. A 50 out of 100 New York Post. Lizzie McGuire's movie doesn't try to be anything more than a superficial escapist fantasy for fans of the show. Oh, Megan, you're back at it again, except this time you're stating the obvious and saying superficial escapist fantasy for fans of the show like it's a bad thing. Like, babes, that's why we were buying tickets. That was literally the reason. That's what got the movie greenlit. Like, are you good? You should meet up with Desan so y'all can talk about how much you both hate Hilary Duff movies, all the while speed racing to the theater to be first in line to buy tickets to her movies. Ridiculous behavior. I don't know what was going on in the mid-aughts. Ignored. Next. 30 out of 100, Washington Post. If your kids are too young to sit unsupervised, get together with other parents and pay an older sibling or sitter to go. Wow, Jane, how incredibly insightful. It's almost like it's a kids' movie made for kids to enjoy with other kids who watch Lizzie McGuire or grew up watching Lizzie McGuire, and that parents enjoying it is not at all a guarantee since that's not their target audience. Imagine having a career as a film critic and being this oblivious, so close to grasping the point, but then giving it a low score just because it doesn't cater to parents. Like, I guess we've always lived in a clown world. Just insane. Anyway, the Lizzie McGuire movie very obviously deserves a 66 out of 100. And there you have it, folks. I was in an especially no BS mood today and could not believe that there were so many people coming for my girl Hilary back in the day. Like, what did she even do to y'all? Like, imagine being an actual teenager and having adults attack your movies like this and compare you to Britney Spears like it's a bad thing. For shame. Give this video a like if you want to vote Hilary for President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Canada simultaneously. Leave a comment down below on your favorite Hilary Duff movie and or if you thought some of these reviews were completely ridiculous or completely on point. And hit that subscribe button for old school media related videos, the variety of which runs the gamut. Chat with y'all later. Have a good one. Bye.